Yes, yes, yes. This is another episode of Wake Up African People. This is Doctor. Tonight's show is part two of the coming of Alexander and the making of Serapis, known today as AKA Jesus the Christ. And we have the great, eminent scholar, Dr. Walter Williams, with his groundbreaking work in research here once again tonight to give you the information that will liberate your mind from religion, a man made concept to control the masses. And tonight, my co host, Brother Bartley, will be controlling the mic. Brother Bartley, the mic is yours.
Okay, brothers and sisters, welcome to another live broadcast of Wake Up African People. To the host, Brother Akbar, and our distinguished guest, Dr. Walter Williams, I greet you all with the words of our ancient Egyptian ancestors, Maya Hotep, which means peace. Before we begin tonight's broadcast, I want to remind our listeners that everything in the universe had a beginning, be it ever so humble. Things that are so shrouded in time that the origin of it is lost, or in most instances, covered up, so that only the ruling class know the true history of the subject. Religion is no exception. Our guest tonight will continue with part two of the historical origin of Christianity. But before we bring him on, allow me, if you will, to read a few words from the author. And it goes like this. I clearly remember growing up in Chicago and attending the local schools. As a young boy, the images that I had before me of successful role models were few. The book I remember reading in grammar school was Little Black Sambo. It left an indelible mark on my memory. This was what I was supposed to identify with and grow up to become. Well, I grew up to become a musician. I played in the band at Eusebio High School, and after graduation, I gigged around Chicago with a musician named Sun Ra. Sun Ra was very clear about who he was and who we were, as Negroes as we were known then. He often called us, we are the descendants of the ancient Egyptians. We are the descendants of the richest culture that has ever existed on the planet. I did not realize at the time what a profound effect these words would eventually have upon the future direction of my life. Nearly 20 years later, while touring Italy with my wife, Carol, and her sister, I was struck by the comments of our tour guide. During his commentary, extolling the grandeur of the Roman Empire, he somewhat matter-of-factly affirmed that the culture of Rome was virtually non-existent until the Romans traveled to ancient Egypt and learned of the marvelous and sophisticated achievements of the ancient Egyptian civilization. This had a very rousing impact on me and brought me back to my consciousness Sun Ra's claim of ancient Egyptian heritage. This was to stir in me an overwhelming desire to know, I mean really know, with a great deal more specificity, the true meaning of Sun Ra's words. This incident was to set this into motion what has become in years since my life's journey. This journey was also to alter my view of world religion. This was the beginning of a 20-year search for the truth. My life has been dedicated to the researching and finding out all that I could to resurrect the ancient Egyptian consciousness in myself and eventually in my people. We have gone from African slaves to coloreds, to Negroes, to blacks, and now, thanks to a proclamation by one of our leaders, we are confused as to whether to call ourselves African Americans, Africans in America, Afro-American, or Black African. Ad infinitum. In all my research, I have kept coming back to the same thing. How did pharaohs become Negroes? What was a psychological button that was pushed? And what happened to a people who had controlled a perfect government for 9,000 years? That they became slaves to Europeans. I offer this book in love and peace to the modern-day descendants of the ancient Egyptians, who today, out of ignorance, are calling themselves Nubians, Sudanese, Ethiopians, Negroes, blacks, or African Americans. It is offered for their spiritual enlightenment as a guide to who they were, are, and can become. As I begin my search for the answer, I stumble across a book, The Outline of History, Volume 1, by H.G. Wells. It was in a music studio owned by a good friend, Chicago musician Jimmy Ellis. This book had a picture of Serapis, the icon image that was projected as the god image of the conquering Greeks. Ptolemy I Lagi, called Soter, meaning Savior. It was an exact likeness of the image of the Redeemer, Savior, Messiah, known in Christianity as Jesus the Christ. As I continue to unravel the pieces of a gigantic puzzle, all the information pointed to one thing. This icon image was the predecessor of the Jesus Christ image. As I take you through the detailed progression of events that led to the creation of the image as they actually happened, I hope that your awakening will come as mine did. I realize that for the first 2,000 years, we have been given a perverted view of our contribution to the world. I realize that the image we have been given to worship as our Redeemer, Savior, Messiah, was that of the conquering Europeans. This will not be an easy book to read. It will be like tearing away your flesh to realize that your Christ Savior was created from the image of Ptolemy I Lagi, an uncivilized European who tried to get himself accepted into the ancient Egyptian ancestors' priest society. This chronological thesis that I present to you within these pages will give you, the reader, the necessary information to understand why the people of color on this planet had labored for the last 2,000 years believing that we were less than everyone else. It wasn't just the conquering European who damaged us. They had assistance from Melkite Coptic Egyptians, the Uncle Toms of antiquity, who cooperated with them to bring about their partial deity, thereby causing themselves to be our worst enemy. The same damage to our African community is being repeated every Sunday morning from the pulpit of the Christian churches all over America and the world. Consider how these Christian ministers hold before their congregations the image icon of Jesus Christ and reiterate over and over that this is our Lord, God, and Savior. They are encouraging us to worship this European image that causes us to become the principal agent in our own spiritual destruction and confusion. We end up hating ourselves as a race of people and each other individually, but loving and emulating the European race. As we approach the 21st century and continue to search for answers to the fulfillment of a people, us, we must examine all that happened from the time the Greeks invaded Egypt in 332 BCE through the convoking of the subsequent councils that were called and attended by our Coptic Egyptian ancestors. These councils will give you the insight needed to understand the many fallacies that have been presented to us throughout the past 2,000 or more years. As you examine this information, it will also lead you to understand that if we are to escape the bondage and destruction of Christianity and all other man-made religions, such as Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, etc., we must resurrect ancient Egypt into our consciousness. We must share with our children the greatness of our ancestors and never allow these misguided brothers and sisters in our midst to compromise our relationship with the Creator. I urge you to read and study this book very carefully. It will not be easy reading because of the unfamiliar terms, times, people, and places. I have included a glossary and a bibliography to assist the learning process. This book also will not be easy reading because of the untraditional and challenging perspective. I am aware of the repetition in this book, but it is there to help you understand the message. This was written by our author, the great Dr. Walter Williams. Once again, with much honor and humility, Wake Up African People are proud to bring to you a man, in our opinion, is the most courageous and analytical historian of our time. He is the author of two of the greatest publications of our era, The Historical Origin of Islam and The Historical Origin of Christianity. The latter is the continued subject matter for tonight. Wake Up African People is proud to once again introduce to you our great teacher and friend, Dr. Walter Williams.
Thank you, Brother Bartley. That was elegant. You did a beautiful, beautiful job, and I felt your spirit as you were reading the words that came from my mind through my pen down on paper. Thank you again. And I want to thank Brother Akbar, the Truth Doctor, for having me on as a guest. And tonight I'm going to present part 2 of the historical origin of Christianity. As you know, we as a people, we have to know what happened to our African ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, after the Greeks came into Egypt. We have to know that. Without that, then we're going to be repeating the same mistakes and the same things that we've been doing for over 400 years in this country. So we cannot continue that because the world is getting smaller, meaning that the world is getting more diverse, especially America. 100 years ago, you only had three groups or races of people here living in the United States of America, and that being the American Native Indian, us Africans, and the European. So we're going to have to understand what happened to our African ancient Egyptian ancestors after the Greeks came into Egypt. Now, the series that we're going to continue to talk about will be the historical origin of Christianity, how it began and who brought it about and what was the ramification that it has on us today. And we have to know all the details that we can to learn exactly how Christianity, how this image that we know today as Jesus the Christ, came into being. We have to know that, because without knowing that, then we're going to continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again, generation after generation, and we're going to be teaching our children and passing this disease and virus on to our people. And so we're going to have to continue to learn and investigate what is happening to us as a people. So tonight we're going to have a continuation of part one that I presented last week, and this week I'm going to present part two. Now, last week I told you about the Council of Ephesus, 431, and I also told you about the Council of Chalcedon, 451. Now, I failed to tell you about the three chapters, because the three chapters is part of the history of the progression of how Christianity was developed. Now, what is the three chapters? The three chapters are three letters written by three Melkite Coptic Egyptians. And it is known in history as the three chapters. You can look it up. You go to the library and you ask the librarian to direct you to the place where you can find the New Catholic Encyclopedia, and it's in there, the three chapters. Now, those three chapters was letters written by Theodore of Mopsuestia and Theodoret of Cyr, Cyr, and Abus of Edessa. Now, these three letters were presented at the Council of Ephesus and at the Council of Chalcedon, 451 and 431. The intent of these letters was to destroy or counter what the Monophysites and the Nestorians were saying about this Christ, about this created creature, the Virgin Mary, etc., etc. But without going into more details about the three chapters, you look it up yourself, and then you can read it. But it fits at the Council of Ephesus and the Council of Chalcedon, meaning that these letters, these three letters written by these three Melkite Coptic Egyptian brothers, were with the intent of destroying or denying the Monophysites and the Nestorians, or to combat what they were saying about this Serapis that is now known as Christ and this Virgin Mary. So now, let me get on with part two of our class session. I left off last week with the creation of the world's first Christian church, which was the Hagia Sophia. The Church of Hagia Sophia was built in Constantinople, Turkey, 532 and finished 537, commissioned to be built by Theodora and her husband Justinian. And that church was built and dedicated to Mary and Christ, the Church of the Holy Wisdom, which is another name for Jesus the Christ. So from that point, we're going to modulate into our second part of today's lesson. We're going to go back and start with Heracles, who time era is 610 to 641. He was a Roman emperor of the Byzantine Empire. And as you know from the first class session, there was a polemic or an argument, an ongoing polemic and argument with the Monophysite Coptic Egyptians and the Melkite Coptic Egyptians. The Melkite Coptic Egyptians are the ones that took the image of Ptolemy I, and along with two of their ancient Egyptian deities, Osiris and Apis, and made a composite of that name and came out with the name Serapis or Serapis, and they gave that name to Ptolemy I, Lagi, who at the Council of Ephesus became Christ, because at that Council of Ephesus, he was given a created creature, a mother, by the name of the Virgin Mary. So that argument between the two factions is still going on. So what Heracles did, he asked a Melkite brother, Coptic Egyptian, to create a decree to try to settle that argument. And Sergius was the one that he picked to do just that. Sergius came up with a decree, hoping that this decree that he created would settle the argument between the two factions. Now, his decree is known in history as monophyletism, which means one will in the created creature, Christ. Christ now, because at the Council of Ephesus, it was Serapis, but now it's the Christ. So we have the Christ on the scene now. So therefore, he created this decree called monophyletism, which means one will in Christ. And then he also created another decree to go along with that first decree, monophyletism, L-I-T, which means one energy. In other words, the decree was asking the Monophysites and the Melkites, could you agree on that this Christ had one energy? And also, can you agree, if you don't agree on that, can you agree that this Christ had one will? Okay? So that's the decree that he grew up. Monophyletism, one will, monophyletism, one energy. But the Monophysites refused to accept that. So the argument and the polemic went on through the years, and we're going to modulate, and we're going to talk about that. Now, after Heracles died in 641, Constance and his cousin Constantine III came to power. Constance killed his cousin in order for him to be the sole ruler of and the sole emperor of the Byzantine Empire. So his time was from 641 to 685. So what he did, he said, I'm talking about Constance now, because his cousin, Constantine III, he had him killed so he can be the sole ruler. So what he did, Constance did, was he had a decree drawn up also to try to end that dispute between the Monophysites and the Melkites. So what happened was this. That decree is known in history as the Typus, Typos, or Typus. And with that Typus decree, Constance said, we're not going to have no more argument over the one energy or the one will, over the monotheism, one will, monotheism, one energy. We're not going to have that no more, okay? So with that being said, let's modulate to our sixth council meeting, the Council of Constantinople III, that was called by Constantine IV in 680. See, and what he did at that council meeting, the first thing he did was that he denounced monotheism. He denounced monotheism, one will, one energy, and he also denounced the Monophysites. So those are the three things he denounced. The second thing he did was he chastised the patriarch of the Hagia Sophia, an African brother by the name of Honorius. He chastised Honorius because Honorius did not, let's say, talk against or criticize monotheism or monotheism. He didn't say anything about that. He didn't challenge that. So he caused a problem among his Melkite brethren, and Constantine IV reprimanded him or chastised him for doing, not bringing criticism against monotheism or monotheism. So he patched up Honorius, and he patched up the relationship between Honorius and the Melkite community by doing that. The third thing he did was to say that monotheism, he put monotheism, one will, in the body or in Christ. In other words, he said that Christ had two wills. He also said that Christ had two energies. So he enforced that. Now, he did that, and after he did that, he says, now, after this is done, I don't want to hear no more disputes about it. It's inseparable and without confusion. In other words, he is saying that monotheism, one will, and monotheism, one energy, is now in the body of this Christ, this created Christ. So let's move on to another phase in our ancestors' history, and we're going to come up to the time of Philippicus. Philippicus at that time was a usurper, and at that time, we're talking about his time was 711 to 713. At that time, the Byzantine Empire was being usurped every year or every 2 years. So he managed to stay 2 years. His name was Philippicus. What he did was something very, very important. In order to let the citizens know who lived in the double-walled city of Constantinople, let them know who the new emperor was, he had his portrait painted and put all throughout Constantinople to let the people know that he is the new emperor. So he only lasted 2 years. Now, every every emperor, Byzantine emperor, picked their own candidate to represent and sit on the throne to represent this Christ in the Church of Hagia Sophia. And they were all Africans doing that. And he had a guy, a man named Honorius, who he picked to be the patriarch of the Hagia Sophia. Because you had the patriarch of the Hagia Sophia who represented the church, and you had the patriarch of Constantinople who represented Monophysites. So Honorius, when the new usurper came in that usurped Serapis from power, Honorius told the incoming patriarch of the Hagia Sophia and gave him the idea that he should have the picture of Christ painted in a frontal portrait portraying this Christ as a human being. Because as you know, it's the old adage that a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. So with that in mind, this incoming patriarch of the Hagia Sophia took that idea and had Christ's picture painted, and he put it all throughout Constantinople to try to settle the argument between the Monophysites and the Melkites. But now, during this time, you had another faction that were threatening the power of the Byzantine Empire. And that power were the Europeans living in the Balkans that are known in history as the Bogomils. The Bogomils said that Christ did not possess a human body, only the appearance of one. That's called Bogomils, or that was their theology, and that was their attitude towards Christ, that he did not have a human body, only the appearance of one. So the new Byzantine emperor is coming into power is Leo III, 717 to 741. Now, he met with the leader of the Bogomils, and he made a truce with him. So now, let's keep my empire, let's keep the empire peaceful without being raided, fighting, etc., etc. So, but the Bogomils wanted him to take down all the portraits of this Christ that was all throughout Constantinople. So he made a promise that he would do that. So when he got in power, he had two African brothers, a brother by the name of Constantine the Black and Thomas, to draw up a decree denouncing those pictures of Christ around Constantinople. And he had them taken down all throughout Constantinople like he promised. And that decree that Constantine the Black and Thomas created is known in history as iconoclasm. Iconoclasm means the breaking of the image. In other words, breaking of the image, destroying the pictures of this Christ. Okay? So he did that. And so when he died in 749, his son, Constantine V, came to power. So now we're going to go up to the 7th Ecumenical Council meeting. And this meeting, I've never heard any scholars, white or African, talk about it. And that's the Council of Hieria, Hierea, the Council of Hieria, 754. At the Council of Hieria, Leo III's son, Constantine V, enforced iconoclasm as a doctrine that was enforced by his power as the emperor. So now we're going to move along. After he died, his son, Leo IV, took over the emperorship of the Roman Empire. So, but here's some trickery coming into play. He was married to a woman by the name of Irene, and they had a child, one son, and he was 10 years old at that time. So the other Roman rulers got to her and told her, said, listen, we want to keep the image of this Christ. We don't want iconoclasm to be a law. We want to keep the image of Christ, and your husband is bent on keeping the enforcement of iconoclasm. So they made an agreement with her that they were going to kill her husband and make her the empress or the Byzantine ruler. And she is known in history as Empress Irene because, see, their 10-year-old son was too young to come to the throne and be the emperor. So the deal was made with her, his wife, Irene. So she became known in history as the Empress Irene. And they called the 8th Ecumenical Council meeting. That was, this council meeting is known in history as the Council of Nicaea II, 787. And it's called Iconoclasm Council meeting, 787. Now, at that council meeting, Irene had the image of Christ to be made a God, to be identified as God. And also, at that council meeting, Council of Nicaea 2787, they created angels, and they created saints as intermediators to get to this God that is Christ. So that is what went on at the 8th Ecumenical Council meeting. Now, let's modulate a little further in history. We're going to come up to the time of the Photius-Phylakes controversy. Photius was a Coptic Egyptian, and Barnabas, who was the emperor, wanted him to be the patriarch of Constantinople because he was a monophysite. And Photius did not get along with the appointed patriarch of the Hagia Sophia. They were two enemies. The patriarch of the Hagia Sophia, is a diaphysitic Christian. Diaphysitic means that an individual who believes that this Christ has two natures, a divine Osiris-like spirit and a human nature. And the monophysite, as you know, says no, this Christ only has an Osiris-like spirit but no human nature. That argument still is going on. So Barnabas had Photius to be installed as the patriarch of the Hagia Sophia, and against the wishes of the patriarch of, had him installed as the patriarch of Constantinople, against the wishes of the patriarch of the Hagia Sophia. So he talking about Photius, he said that he could not accept this Christ into the creed. The creed that this Christ was inserted in was then known as Serapis back at the Council of Nicaea I that I told you about last week, where they took Serapis and took out the S-U-N of Osiris and Isis and inserted this European created creature, Serapis, which was the son, supposed to be the son of Osiris and Isis. But I went over that. So now Photius is saying, I cannot accept that. So he did not want to accept and did not accept this created creature, Serapis, that the Melchites inserted in the creed and at the Council of Nicaea I, 325. So all of this plays a part in us learning historically as to what happened to our African ancient Egyptian ancestors after the Greeks came in. And this part one and today part two is giving you some of that history. So I'm going to cut it there, and I'm going to turn the mic back over to my host, Brother Akbar. Brother Akbar, are you there?
Doctor.
Brother Bartley, are you there?
Yes, I'm here,
Yes.
brother. I'm here. I'm listening up. So
Yes,
far,
we're
it's
here.
real deep. Yes, indeed. I hope people have a pencil and paper so they can write down some of the stuff, because it's really deep.
See, nobody's giving it to our African community. This is the only place that they can get this from. It's through Brother Akbar's The Truth Doctor show that I'm on at this very moment, and that's the reason why we're doing it. So the information that I'm imparting could be heard and hopefully accepted by our African community in America and throughout the world.
Right, and I think that it will eventually break through. There's so much opposition against this type of information, and I can understand it because it actually breaks down a whole lot of misconceptions and historical inconsistencies. And a lot of the scholars don't want this. In other words, to me, this is a knowledge that is kept secret. They want to keep this secret. They don't want the public to get a hold of this kind of information, because this kind of information is liberating to the individual, you see.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But then again, you got to also remember this. The scholars out there, whether they're Africans or the Europeans, they don't know this. Okay? They don't know the progression historically of what happened and how the creation of Christianity came about, how that image that we know today as Jesus Christ came about. They don't know that, okay? Because they have been indoctrinated from early child age by their parents who passed the disease and virus onto them. And I made a survey one year in Western academia. I wanted to find out the Western academians out there, did they embrace a religion? And all of them embraced a religion of some kind. Every last one of them. So they have been put into the same indoctrinated position that our ancestors came to be put in as we see it today. So what I'm saying is that the indoctrination goes very, very deep. And with that indoctrination, time will erase the historical origin of Christianity and the historical origin of these various religions. Now, today, and what we're going to get into on part 3, is that how this monster that we know today as Jesus the Christ was unleashed on the world populace when the seed of Christianity moved out of Northeast Africa, out of the Church of Hagia Sophia, into Europe. At that point, they unleashed this monster called Jesus the Christ on the whole entire world, and they changed the whole format. They changed the whole creation of Christianity. And you'll see that as we progress, that the Roman Catholic Church, at this very moment that I'm talking to the listening audience, that the Roman Catholic know historically and that there's never been a man that ever walked the earth in human form of any race, creed, or color by the name of Jesus Christ. They know that. Okay?
Yes, I can understand that. When you look at the religion itself, I would say that our ancient Egyptian ancestors actually are the creators of Christianity. Now, the reason why I say that, because even after they were arguing over Serapis, they knew it was a created creature. That didn't stop them from continuing in the religion. That's what has me puzzled.
Well, it shouldn't have you puzzled, Brother Bartley, because I'm giving you the foundation of how Christianity was created and how this image that we know as Jesus Christ was created. So you shouldn't be puzzled. You see?
No, I'm saying, why would you know if you got an idol, you know it's an idol, why would you continue to worship that idol?
Because they don't know any better. See, an individual, you got to remember this, Brother Bartley, that when an individual comes out of their mother's womb after being incubated for 9 months in her womb and attached to her umbilical cord, the umbilical cord is cut by the doctor, and to separate the child from its mother. Life continues to flow through that baby's body. So now that baby has a mother and a father. So the mother and the father, who happens to be a Christian or whatever religion that they so-called embrace, that they pass that disease and virus on to this child, this innocent child. And the child, in their innocency, cannot say, Mom, Dad, I don't want to be a Christian. So they grow up being a Christian or grow up being whatever religion that their parents pass on to them. Because you got to remember that that child's grandparents pass it on to their mother and father. And their great-grandparents pass it on to their grandparents and goes back. See? So that's how people come up today believing. See, religions is based off of belief. That's the glue that keeps all religions together, is one's belief in these various religions. If you don't believe in these religions, the religion is dead. Your human belief, your human spirituality gives religion power, gives religion life, gives this Bible power, gives this Bible life, gives God power, gives God, life. You see, all these things are attached to these various religions out here. But what keeps these religions going from generation to generation is passed down from generation to generation in a human's innocency as a child. You see, by the parents. You see, and they end up doing their children the same thing. So it continues to move forward. So the time has come that we, as an African people, we have to stop that. We have to know what we are doing now. And the only way that you know what you're doing is by you have to learn and take in and seek new knowledge in order for us to grow as a people. You cannot no longer sit in these pews of these churches anymore, sitting up there believing, giving all your power away to this dead white man on the cross. Because what you're doing when you do that, you're supporting white supremacy. You're supporting white people to be superior. You're supporting black and African inferiority. That's what you're doing. You see? Because you got to realize that the image, the icon, and the symbol of white supremacy is institutionalized in all Christian churches throughout the world and throughout America. That you have to understand. Christianity is nothing but a tool to enhance the European, to keep in force, in favor, and keep in power the European by being and promoting this white image on the cross that we know today as Jesus Christ. So we have to understand what we are doing, you see. So belief is very dangerous because belief incarcerates one's mind, your thinking. It limits your thinking. You can't think because your mind is being incarcerated. It's like a person in jail, live in the prison. He's put into a 6x9 jail cell. That's where he lives. That's where he thinks. That's where he does everything. His whole life is centered in that jail space. You see? So when you embrace a religion, the religion is doing the same thing to you, or you're doing the same thing to yourself without knowing it, because it incarcerates your mind. It puts you in bondage. So in order for you to be free, you have to know and take in new information. What we're doing on presenting these lecture series via Blog Talk Radio is we're trying to provoke thought in the minds of the listeners who tune in to this program. And we're trying to provoke thought and put it on record as to what happened to our African ancestors, the ancient Egyptians, after the Greeks came into Egypt.
Okay. Well, you're painting a pretty good picture so far. I see it in my mind. But like I say, the people who created this image were black people, our ancient African Egyptians. They created this monster, and they gave it to the Greeks. But they still kept coming back to these council meetings, and over 900 years, they had the argument whether this thing was a human being or not. So therefore, you already know it's phony. You already know it's a fake. Why would you keep arguing over a fake?
They don't know anything about it. It goes back to, like I said before, they're indoctrinated at an early age as a child. So they don't know any better. Nobody's told them any better, except for when I come on the scene in the world, on the African scene, I'm telling them the truth. Now, it's up to them to accept it, or I can't make them accept it, you see? And you got to remember, Brother Bart, is this. That image that we know today as Jesus the Christ, then known as Serapis, that was created by our Melkite African ancestors for the European. See, it was created on purpose for the European, trying to appease him during his occupation of ancient Egypt, northeast Africa, Syria, and Turkey. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Because our ancestors already had their deities. You see? Already in place in a sacred temple society. Already before the Greeks ever got set foot into Egypt. So this creation of Serapis and the creation of Christianity, which was done by way of these council meetings, was for the sole purpose of appeasing the European. So I'm going to put that and set the record straight.
Okay. All right. Yes, sir. So, Brother Akbar.
Yes.
Brother Akbar, you have any
I'm
comment?
here. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I
you hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I have something to share. Doctor, I was talking to a learned brother. Matter of fact, he was on my show, so I was discussing your work with him. And I was saying that, Doc Williams says that, and proves in his book that there's no such thing as Jesus, and it's just all a made-up, created creature, a statue. And he said to me, he said, what you going to give people in place once you take that away? Would you elaborate on that and tell us, do you have an answer for that? What would you give people if you take away their Jesus?
Well, I've been asked that question many, 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 many times, Brother Akbar. And my answer is this. When a person asks me, like a woman came up to me after a lecture in Sacramento, California, some years back. Says, Dr. Williams, I am a Christian, and I hear you say that there's never been a man that ever walked the earth in human form, been a race, creed, or color by the name of Jesus Christ. By me being a Christian, what do I put in the place of me not having to worship a Jesus Christ? What do I put in this place? So I said to her, you already have it. You were born with it. That's your indwelling divine spiritual birthright. That's keeping you alive at this very moment that I'm talking to you. It was given to you when you came out of your mother's womb. That life indwelling spirit that you have as a gift from your mother and your father, okay, through the 9 months of incubation after they had a sexual intercourse. So you have what you need to replace that. You're already walking around with it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's your indwelling divine spirit that's indwelling inside of you at this very moment. Because no human on earth was born with religion. Okay? When you came out of your mother's womb as a human being, you were given everything that you would spiritually need to sustain yourself as long as you live. That goes for all humans. All humans has a birth certificate, at least they should. On your birth certificate, it does not say Christian on there. It does not say Muslim on it. It doesn't say Black, Hebrew, Israelite, or Jew on it. It doesn't say that. Because all these are man-made religion. Okay? So therefore, you have to realize something about yourself. That's the reason why I said to people that if an individual walk up to me and say, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Black Hebrew Israelite, I'm a Jew, I'm a Buddhist, I'm like this, some man-made religion, that individual is telling me they know nothing about their own personal humanity. And that's the first thing you need to know is something about your own personal humanity. See? So you already have what is to be put in this place, your own personal indwelling divine humanity, which is your indwelling divine spiritual birthright. That's my answer.
Mm-hmm. That's a good answer.
Good answer. And these other people that hold on even after they hear your information and still hold on to the old stuff. I mean, I'm talking about the so-called learned ones, the people who propagate these different things like Black Jesus and or Yahweh and all these different names and stuff. I think your work has become like a dangerous tool to their economic situation, because your work, if your work that will prove that everything that they believe in and everything that they push is null and void. What would you say to that?
Well, the only thing I can say to that is this, Brother Akbar. If they're out here pushing Christianity for monetary gain or for some type of recognition, to the recognition that feeds their ego, etc., then they are phonies. Okay? I'm not out here. I don't make a living doing this. I spent 40 years of my life learning what I know now to give to my African people in the African community in America and throughout the world. Give it to you free, with love. You don't have to buy anything from me. I have 2 books that is out for sale. Yes, but you don't have to buy them. I don't make a living selling books or be on talk radio shows or giving lectures. That's not how I make my living. I don't make a living doing that. So if you want to buy the book, fine. But I don't merchandise among my people. If I put out things like my books, I have DVD tapes of my lectures. I put them out when I lecture. If they want to buy them, fine. If they don't, then they don't buy them. So these people out here, they have an agenda, an organized agenda that they're presenting to the people. They're playing on the people's ignorance. So instead of telling these people the truth, they'd rather keep the lie going and keep these people enthused over coming to see them and thinking that they have something that they're talking about that will inspire them to think. But it only inspires them to think in the wrong direction. Because what happens is that by them not knowing the truth, they think it is okay to keep holding on to the lie. It's not okay to hold on to the lie, because the lie is not your friend. See, the lie is not your friend. So don't hold on to the lie. And anybody come along and continue this lie that these religions are taking and bringing to the people, then they're a false and phony prophets, or false and phony so-called scholars. I call them entertainers. See, I'm not interested in entertaining you. I don't want to entertain you. That's not what I'm about. I want to impart knowledge to you so it will help provoke thought, with the hopes of that you taking this information that provoke thought in your thinking, that you can liberate yourself from this dilemma and ignorance that our people are in via these religions. You see? So that's what I have to say about that. That's my answer.
Just like our intro records say, they want to keep these people in a ball of confusion. We have a caller, and I want you to let the caller in to see if they have anything to ask you. 1 minute. Caller, the number 3304, the last 4 numbers. Do you have a question for the great doctor?
Mayor Hotep, Dr. Williams.
Mayor Hotep, Brother Keys.
How you feel?
Feel great. How you doing?
Excellent, excellent.
Good.
As usual, I'm enjoying the show. I'd like to say Mayor Hotep to your hosts, Akbar and Brother Bartlett as well.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Quite welcome. Yeah, Dr. Williams, I'm just calling in, as usual, to represent and to thank you, as always, pardon this information and provoking thought. And it's like I said, it's changed my life, man. And so I'm not going to hold up the phone, but thanks again. Thank you, brothers, for allowing the doctor to come on and feed us this information, because it's so needed in our community, as you know. So, again, thank you all, and you all have a safe night. Now,
hotel, Brother Keith.
My hotel.
You.
And it's one thing that the doctor's work and research is so groundbreaking and so new that it's not many people that can even come in to ask questions or challenge it or anything, because the information is brand new. I mean, his book has been out for 20 years, and it's selling. People are buying it little by little. They're taking this in. Our shows that we have done with the great doctor are doing very good. One is about to approach 20,000 listeners, and the comments and everything that's on there is very, very positive to his information. So, we're just trying to help get this information out here to free the souls and the minds of our people. Because one of the most dangerous tools that was ever created, religion, no matter what religion it is. And the people need something to hold on to because they're being beat down, abused, and worked until they can't walk or cripple and old and discarded in society. They have to hope and hope for something and everything. But the hope is for us to come together, get rid of these silly religions because they don't really even make any sense. The power is in unity. And the unity of our people is going to get us somewhere, not on our knees begging some mystery God that has never given you anything that you can talk about or really prove that he's given you, because it's all a man-made concept. Doctor, we have 18 minutes left. Do you want to build on the information that you gave us tonight, or do you just want to say something else?
Well, I looking forward to part 3, which would be next Tuesday. Is that correct, Brother Akbar?
Yes, next Tuesday. Next Tuesday is when we're going to come back in and build on what you already have and take this historical progression all the way to its apex.
Okay, and we're going to talk about the Moors. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's what you said. We're going to talk about the Moors and the role they played.
Right, and we're going to talk about the Seljukian Turks. We're going to talk about Ibn al-Arabi, who, a.k.a. alias Muhammad. In other words, his name was Muhammad Ibn al-Arabi, alias Muhammad. So we're going to talk about the first Mohammedanism as being the first religion that's called Islam. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Ottoman Turks, what they did with the sword, walking up to the people in the region over there where they dominated, walked up and said, Muhammad will die. We need to know all of this because that's all part of the history that's attached to our ancestors' history. And we need to know that, you see, because that's one of the things that's lacking in our community. Our community, in the African community, they do not know history, you see, because the school system will not teach them history. The school system must educate us as a people on purpose, and they keep you away from history. Okay? So need to know history in order for us to find our way out of this dilemma. So we're going to go through that on part 3, the Moors, Seljukian Turks, Ibn al-Arabi, alias Muhammad, the Ottoman Turks, and so forth and so on. So we're going to go into that. And then later on we're going to talk about how the seat of Christianity was moved out of Northeast Africa, out of the Hagia Sophia, out of Constantinople, and into Europe. What year, who did it, and how it was done. And we're going to talk about the Curia over in Florence, Italy, during the time of the Renaissance era. We're going to talk about the African who came into Florence, Italy in 1397, and he was born in Constantinople. We're going to talk about Manuel Chrysalis, the person I'm talking about who came to launch the Renaissance era for the Europeans, 1397, by introducing to the handful of students at the Curia, which is the word Curia, C-U-R-I-A, means college, that he introduced to them the rudiments of the Greek alphabet. So he learned, the first thing he taught was the ABCs of the Greek alphabet in order to begin to spread literacy. And we're going to talk about the coming and the making of the Vatican. Who created the Vatican? Who was first ones to create the Vatican? How they went over on the outskirts of Rome and dug up over the catacombs those burial grounds that were down in the ground called the catacombs, and so forth and so on. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Gutenberg's, Johannes Gutenberg, who created the printing press and invented the printing press for the very first time. We're going to talk about that. We're going to give you the date and so forth and so on. We're going to talk about the Bible. When the first Bible was printed on planet Earth, what country was printed in, what city in that country was printed in, what alphabet was used to print that Bible, who compiled that Bible to be printed, to be put together, to be printed, and whose material was used to print that Bible and to make it a composite information and literature to be printed. And what was the Orthodox name of that Bible, and so forth and so on. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about who brought forth the New Testament and who took the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament and put it under one cover. I'm going to give you the date and the name of that individual. So we've got a lot to learn. We're going to talk about who is this man called God, break all that down. So I'm looking forward to our third part and also our fourth and last part of our four-part set, of four-part presentation of our history, which we're presenting in 4 parts.
Now, Doctor, before we close out, a person, when I told them that there was no man that ever walked the earth by the name of Jesus Christ, and that the Bible was a recently written book, they started talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls. What would you say to this Dead Sea Scrolls and all these so-called scrolls, ancient Bibles they're talking about they're finding?
Well, see, the Dead Sea Scrolls is nothing but a 20th century European fake. That's all it is. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, I went to the University of Chicago some years back to take a DSS class, a Dead Sea Scrolls class. I wanted to find out what Western academia or Europeans, how they are using the Dead Sea Scrolls, what they are using to try to make the Dead Sea Scrolls a factual document and a truthful document. Okay? So I found out what they were offering as proof as to the Dead Sea Scrolls being authentic and have some type of authenticity. Okay? So I found out that they're saying that the Dead Sea Scrolls is in the writings of Josephus, which has never been a Josephus. They said that they use Pliny the Elder. There's never been a Pliny the Elder. They said that followed Judaeus. There's never been who's supposed to be a Jewish philosopher. There's never been a follow Judaeus. They said that Eusebius of Pamphylia, Eusebius of Caesarea, was all four of those names I just mentioned. Josephus, Pliny the Elder, Philo Judaeus, and Eusebius Pamphylia was how they making the Dead Sea Scrolls an authentic document. You can't do that. So all these names that is attached to that is never existed as human beings, and I can break all that down. Okay? Now, if they found the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, very conveniently, 46, 47, the year before the UN gave a charter to the Zionist Jews to create a state, a legal state of Israel over there in Palestine. Very convenient. So they came out with that, you see. So so you can't use the Dead Sea Scrolls. I have to break it down. I can break it down further as to why that it cannot be used, because it is European fakes, you see, created by Western academia, you see. So that's my answer at this moment about the Dead Sea Scrolls.
You know what I'm looking at?
Brother Bartley.
Yes.
We have another caller, and I want to give them an opportunity to ask a question.
Okay.
1 minute.
Good.
Let's
Good.
close out.
Good. Yes, good.
Yes, caller with 833. Would you like to ask the doctor a question? Caller 8633. Well, I don't think they wanted to say anything. And there were some children in the background. So go ahead, Brother Bartley.
Well, you know, I just wanted to say that this work is monumental. When you really think about it, I think about it all the time. And this is a world changer that we're talking about here. This is nothing to play with, you know. And we're not trying to destroy people's belief system or their religion. It's just giving facts. If a person can't deal with the facts, that's not our problem. You see? And this man put all these years in doing this research. He didn't do it for fun. He do it because he want to liberate our mind from this mysticism that seems to be endemic in the African mindset. He just have to create something spooky or mystified. You see, when the European, you know, he's looking at this whole thing as a way to control people politically. It's a political tool, and he's been using that very effectively. But our poor black people, they really take things to heart without even doing any investigation, any study, or anything of that nature. And I find that to be unacceptable. As a human being with the same amount of intelligence as other human beings, I don't see why and how these people can be so deceived by this nonsense. The man is laying out a clear picture for you to see it. And if you don't, if you're not trying to understand it, or you just miscombobulate it because of the information, you're in bad shape. Whoever it is, you're in bad shape if you can't accept the facts and the truth. If you got another truth that you think is higher than this, then present it so that we can get some information from it. That's all I have to say.
Well, Brother Bartlett, you said a mouthful, and everything and every word that came out of your mouth is right on target. The first thing that I tell people who are Christians or whoever embraces a religion of any kind, I tell them I have no right to take your religion away from you. I have no right to tell you not to be a Christian. Why? Because I didn't tell you to be one. So I have no right to come in your life and tell you not to be a Christian, but I do have a right to bring truth based on facts in our African community. Now, if you don't want to hear it, walk away from it. If you don't want to read it, leave it alone. And you go on about your business, and this is what you want to do with your life, to walk into these churches and bow down to a dead white man that don't even look like you, and support white supremacy and white superiority, and support African black inferiority. That's what you're doing. The European has used Christianity and his image attached to Christianity, this Jesus the Christ, to terrorize all of humanity. You see? That's part of his tool to terrorize the rest of the world. Now, the European, as you know, has terrorized every inch of this earth that we live on, this planet that we call Earth, and every human that's living on this earth, including himself, has been terrorized by the European. Now, I'm not making anything up on the European. This is his record. I didn't make his record. He did. Okay? So now, he uses this terrorization that he has created, and along with his image, to help support white supremacy, to put himself over all races of people living on earth. Now, the foundation to his white supremacy is based on lies, deceit, murder, injustice, corruption, mythology, greed, terrorism, sexism, militarism, slavery, exploitation, violence, hate, plunder, rape, religion, mythology, and perverted scholarship. That's the foundation to white supremacy, and he uses this foundation to terrorize all of humanity. Lies, deceit, murder, injustice, corruption, terrorism, militarism, sexism, racism, slavery, exploitation, plunder, rape, violence, hate, religion, mythology, and perverted scholarship. That's the foundation of his white supremacy stronghold that he has over all of humanity.
Well, Dr. Williams,
yes.
I just got a text, and the brother has a question. I'm going to let the brother in. 1 minute. Yes, caller 6211. Last word. You have a question for the great doctor.
Hello, this you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, how you doing, Dr. Williams? How you doing? Thank you for
how you
coming
doing,
on the show. Great. Thank you for coming on the show, and I appreciate the knowledge that you're giving. And I also want to say that I agree with almost everything you're saying, but the only thing I have a question about, I always believe that history has been taken from us. And, of course, religion, is created by men, but however, I believe it came from somewhere. Now, as I did my research, this guy come up, this Egyptian pharaoh by the name of Akhenaten, and it says he was the pharaoh that promoted or pushed out one God, belief in one God. Now, according to what you're saying is there's no such thing as a written book or any religion or any belief that a man would have in a higher being. I guess my question would be, is that the case or not?
Well, you see, here's the thing. You spoke about Akhenaten as being the one that promoted one God concept. You have to understand that Akhenaten is part of the chronology of ancient Egypt, okay, along with King Tut, along with Hatshepsut, along with a whole lot of other Ramesses and so forth and so on. So that's all part of the chronology of ancient Egypt. Now, the ancient Egyptians never wrote a history of themselves. They left us an immortal legacy in stone, monuments, papyrus, the pyramids, the Sphinx, and so forth and so on. So, who created the chronology of ancient Egypt? Western academia. They created that chronology. Our ancestors didn't create that. So, they put in what they want to put in. You see, about Akhenaten, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Now, that's what the European is saying. He institutionalized that in his institution. Okay? So you have to understand history and go to the origin of every subject that you're trying to learn about. You go to the origin of every subject. And from the origin of that subject that you're trying to learn, then you will get the truth, because the truth is in the origin. The facts are there, you see? So my new book coming out, I have a warning in there to all African scholars, teachers, intellectuals, and students. Do not use the chronology of ancient Egypt. Why? Because the ancient Egyptians never wrote a chronology or a history of themselves. If the chronology of ancient Egypt, the first dynasty, second dynasty, and this pharaoh and that pharaoh, and so forth and so on, it's all created by Western academia using the Bible to do so. And I present to you in my new book a section coming from a book that I found that was given to me by my friend Jimmy Ellis, a book that was printed in 1868. And in that book, it had a chronology of ancient Egypt, and it tells you at each section of that chronology, he'll tell you where to find what you just got through reading in that particular section, and the year, and so forth. It'll tell you where to find that in the Bible. So they use the Bible to do that in order to have a chronology that they could control the history and the culture of our ancestors, ancient Egyptians, by creating something that they can control and put it into their institutions to control, and to give to their students in there and train them to be Egyptologists. See? So you got to be very careful of that, you know. And something else you said. What was the other part, young man?
Well, you basically answered, because I want to know the origin, and I believe that, you know, history was taken and they used that to control us. They take it, manipulate it, switch it up to use us. But one thing that you mentioned, you say it's all created from Europeans and they used the Bible. And you say the Egyptians never wrote any history of themselves, I guess. But my question, what is hieroglyphics? What is that? Those things in the pyramid about the history and about their life. What is that?
See, the hieroglyphics are pictorial symbols in my book, The Historical Origin of Christianity. You ever read that book?
No, I never read that book.
Okay, well, you need to get it if you want to.
Yeah.
On page 146, I have a appendix chapter in there that says why the metanatural hieroglyphics has never been deciphered. So those are pictorial symbols that's never been deciphered. You see? Now, the European says that Champollion deciphered the hieroglyphics. Okay? But they put a alphabet to pictures, and you can't do that. They did that also to institutionalize our ancestors' culture in their colleges and universities, so they can say that they are an authority and that they are Egyptologists about our ancestors' culture and history and civilization. So I'm saying that the hieroglyphics has never been deciphered. You cannot put an alphabet to a picture, okay, which becomes a symbol. The only thing that you can do to what we call the hieroglyphics, pictorial symbols, is to explain the meaning of those symbols if you know the meaning of it. You can't explain something that you don't know the meaning of it. Like when you went to take your driver's test, I'm assuming that you drive. Is that correct?
That's correct.
When you went to the state, where are you calling from?
Come out the driver's license.
No, where are you calling from?
Oh, calling from South Florida.
South Florida. So when you went to the state to take your driver's test, you were tested in three things: rules of the road, eyesight, and symbols. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, when you got to the symbols part, they didn't actually put no alphabet to it. They asked you to explain the symbols. Is that right?
Yeah, the signs. Yes, correct.
That's right. If you didn't know the meaning of those symbols or signs, you failed the test. So the same thing with the pictorial symbols known as the hieroglyphics. They said some said there are 400 of those symbols. Some said 6. Some said 1,000. Some said even 2,000. Okay. Now, in order for you to know the meaning of what the ancient Egyptians who drew those symbols, what meant for them to be, you will have to ask them what he or she meant for them to be. They're not around for us to ask that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. So now, let's take, if I drew a symbol at this very moment, use your imagination. I'm drawing a symbol, and I ask you, young man, what is the meaning of this symbol? Could you tell me?
If it's a symbol I never saw before, I couldn't tell.
I'm drawing it, yes.
Yes, I wouldn't be able to tell you. You would have to tell me what it means.
There you go. So that's part two of my argument. Now, you seen the symbol of a question mark?
Yeah, I know the symbol of a question mark. I know the symbol of a question mark. Yes.
Right. Okay. You know the symbol of a question mark. Now, can you put an alphabet to that symbol of a question mark?
If I did, it would have to be an A for an answer.
No. Listen,
I can't.
Go back.
No, you can't. You can't.
You can't do that, can you? But now you can explain the meaning of that symbol, can't you?
Yes, I can.
You said that's a question mark. That means for one to ask questions. Now you explained it, but you cannot put an alphabet to that.
No, you can't.
So that's the reason why I'm saying that the hieroglyphics have never been deciphered.
So they just created their own interpretations from the symbols.
There you go. And they formed and made a consensus among themselves to do just that.
Institutionalized it.
There you go, and institutionalized it.
Yes, well,
Doc, I would suggest that you do is find my book, The Historical Origin of Christianity, buy the book, and on page 147, you'll see, 146, you'll see why the metanatural hieroglyphics has never been deciphered, and I'll break it down for you that way.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that question. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you calling in and keep up the good work.
Before the brother go, I want to thank him for having the courage to call in and answer his questions. We wish more of the people who were online push the number 1 button and come in and ask the questions. Doctor ain't going to bite you. He's just going to lay it down historically and give you some accurate information that you can use to uplift your mind. But Doc, before the brother go, I want you to explain to him about Adolf Ehrman.
Well, Adolf Ehrman was the first. He was a German. He was a curator of the Berlin Museum of Ancient Egyptian Artifacts. In 1880, he created the world's first grammatical dictionary of the hieroglyphs. 1825, they revised that grammatical dictionary, and 1925 they revised it. That grammatical dictionary that Adolf Ehrman created in 1880. In 1934, they revised it again. So Adolf Ehrman is one of the ones that brought out a grammatical dictionary for the very first time, and then E.A. Wallace Burge came out after that and created another grammatical dictionary of the hieroglyphs, and he wrote in his book, The Coming Forth by Day and Coming Forth by Night, the Book of the Dead, and so forth and so on. So, you have to really study into what is being put before us and who is putting it before us and where it came from. So, that's part of knowing why the Melanesian hieroglyphics have never been deciphered and what the Europeans have done to pretend that they have deciphered the hieroglyphics. Okay? And also, let me add this, Adolf Ehrman and his teacher, Carl Richard Lepsius, and other scholars such as James Henry Breasted of the University of Chicago, back in the late 19th century. Late 19th century. They used a system called the Rebus system, and I'm explaining the Rebus system in my new book that's coming out, Dispelling Myths of Ancient Egypt. My wife is writing a chapter, and in her chapter she's going to talk about the Rebus system also, and that has something to do with deciphering, supposed decipherment of the hieroglyphics, how the Europeans used that Rebus system to use as a consensus among themselves to say that they have deciphered the hieroglyphics. So it goes on and on and on. So we have to get to the root and bottom of it by way of research and study, and that's what I'm doing.
Yes. Okay, my brother, thank you for coming on. And we have one more call. The caller called back. Maybe they must have a question. 1 minute. Caller 633. Question. Caller with the last numbers 8623. Okay, well, that caller doesn't have a question still. But we're going to wind it up tonight. Doc, could you give your website out and the name of your two books before we close down the show?
Yes. I don't have a website, Brother Akbar. I do have emails. So
yes.
An individual wants to email me. You can email me at ancientegyptian@msn.com. Ancient, ANCIENT, Egyptian, EGYPTIAN, @msn.com. When you email me, put your phone number there, and I'll call you back, and we can go from that point. And my two books, The Historical Origin of Christianity, has been out for 23 years now. It will be 23 years this coming 2016. It's been out 22 years. And then my second book, The Historical Origin of Islam, has been out for 12 years. And the thesis of the Historical Origin of Christianity book is saying that there has never been a man that ever walked the earth in human form of any race, creed, or color by the name of Jesus Christ. And I'll walk you through the progression of what I'm saying and the reasons why I'm saying it. And that book contains no biblical references whatsoever. I use the Bible as reference. I use the discipline of history, human history, to do that, to write that book. The second book, The Historical Origin of Islam, I'm saying, the thesis of that book is that I'm saying that there's never been a man that ever walked the earth in human form of Islamic tradition by the name of a Prophet Muhammad. I didn't use any biblical references or Quranic references from the Quran. I used the discipline of human history to do that. So those are my two books, The Historical Origin of Christianity and The Historical Origin of Islam.
Yes, and we thank you, Doctor, for putting in the work and the time to help to elevate the minds of our people. And this is Brother Akbar, better known as the Truth Doctor.
This is Brother
Bartley. Brother Bartley, my co-host. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, and Mayat Hotep.
Mayat Hotep, my brother. And thank
Hotep. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wake Up African People.